The returned stars hung silent over the galactic border, far beyond where most dared to go. It was there, in the black sea of nothing, that the old Earth ship drifted. They had called it the Dawnwalker. Once it had carried humans into the unknown. Now, it was nothing more than a myth, a story told to scare young officers about what happens when humans go too far. But then the signal came. It was weak, broken, filled with static but unmistakably human. Commander Silai of the Ilarian fleet was the first to receive it. She froze as the transmission reached her ship's core translator. One word repeated, again and again, in a voice that sent shivers down her spine. "We remember." The bridge crew fell silent. The young second pilot whispered, "That ship vanished over 80 years ago." "That's impossible," said Silai, but even as she spoke, she saw the impossible forming on the edge of her star map. A human vessel, surrounded by radiation and a strange energy signature they could not classify, was moving toward them, slowly, like a ghost, and then they saw it, the Dawnwalker. Old and rusted, scarred from battles that didn't exist in any record, appeared out of the void. Its hull glowed faintly red, not from fire, but from something alive, something watching. "Send no signal," Silai ordered. "Just watch." Inside the human ship, the lights flickered to life. Systems, long dead, were awake again. At the center, in a command chair covered in old Earth symbols, sat a man. He was alone. Or at least he looked like a man. His skin was pale like moonlight. His eyes glowed faint gold. Around him, machines moved like they obeyed his thoughts. He looked ahead, unblinking, at the alien fleet waiting to intercept. His name was Elias Kaine. He had once been a captain. Now he was something else. 80 years ago, he and his crew were lost in a failed jump through dark space. No one knew what they found there. No one survived, except him. And he never spoke about it, not to anyone. But he came back changed, and something had come back with him. "They're scanning us," a deep voice echoed inside the Dawnwalker, though no mouth had spoken. It came from the ship itself. "Shall I reply?" Elias didn't answer with words. He stood up, placed one hand on the cracked control panel, and thought. Outside, the Dawnwalker glowed brighter. Not like a machine, not like a weapon. It pulsed like a heart. The Ilarian fleet backed away. Fear was rare among them, but now it spread like frost. "What is he?" Sully whispered. No one answered. But deep in the galactic archives, ancient warnings had been written in forgotten scripts. They spoke of a species that walked with death and called it friend. A species that could suffer more than any other, and rise again stronger. Not because of power, but because of something deeper. Now, the humans had returned. But they didn't return as soldiers. They came back with something even more dangerous. Hope. And hope, when carried by a broken man who had seen the edge of time and lived, was no longer just human. It was divine. Elias looked out at the stars. "Let them come," he whispered. The voice inside the ship replied, "They already are." Then a strange hum filled the void, like a song. Not sung by humans, but remembered by space itself. And in the silence between systems, the galaxy listened. The galaxy listened. Dawnwalker hovered above the edge of the Ilarian fleet like a shadow cast from forgotten stories. Its engines didn't burn with fire. They shimmered like water disturbed by something ancient. Nothing in the Ilarian database matched the readings. Radiation, yes, but more than that. It was as if the laws of physics bent slightly near the ship, like they respected it, or feared it. Commander Silai stood frozen at the command table, her fingers hovering over the holographic controls. He hasn't spoken. He hasn't sent any warning. And yet, every ship we send closer shuts down. 3 drones disabled. 1 scout turned back. No damage, but It reported voices, her officer said, pale and shaking. Voices from where? It said the ship spoke to it, directly, like a mind. Sully narrowed her eyes. No AI is that strong. Not even human tech was ever that advanced. But deep inside, she knew. This was not just human technology anymore. It was something new. Something born in silence, in isolation, in the dark places of the universe where even light turned away. On board the Dawnwalker, Elias Kaine sat alone in a vast chamber filled with quiet hums. Wires twisted through the ceiling like vines. Flickering lights danced across walls filled with ancient Earth script drawings of stars, faces, pain, and love. Memories of those lost. Of his crew. Of everything. He closed his eyes and remembered. The last moment before the fall, they had jumped into the void to escape an ambush 6 alien ships had fired at once, tearing into their hull. Engines failed, navigation gone. Everything had gone black. But something caught them. Something that lived beyond time. He had no name for it. Only feelings, sorrow, patience, curiosity. And when it saw him, it didn't destroy him. It rebuilt him. You should speak to them, the ship said gently. Its voice had changed over the years. It used to sound like metal. Now it sounded like a friend. Not yet, Elias whispered. They fear what they don't understand. So did you once. He smiled sadly. Yes, and it cost me everything. He stood and walked through the hollow hallways of the Dawnwalker. Each step echoed with memory. The laughter of old crewmates. The cries of their final moments, now all gone. Except him. And yet he was not alone. A presence walked beside him unseen. Unfelt by most. But real. Outside, the galaxy moved. Sully's fleet wasn't the only one watching. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the Dawnwalker. BROADCASTS spread across systems. Old allies of Earth, former enemies, and curious traders, all drawn by the whisper of the impossible. A dead ship had returned, and it carried something that moved like a man, but stood like a god. Back on Sully's ship, she finally spoke. Open a channel. Send this message in every language known. A quiet pause. Then her voice echoed through space. This is Commander Sully of the Ilarian fleet. To the human vessel, identify yourself. Your ship vanished 80 years ago. We do not wish for conflict, but we must know your purpose. Who are you? For a moment, nothing came. Then her screens flickered, and a voice, low and calm, filled her ship. I am Elias Kaine, captain of the Dawnwalker. I carry the memory of Earth and something more. Sully leaned closer. What more? Elias answered softly. I carry what you left behind. And just like that, the signal vanished. Sila, I stepped back. What does that mean? He's not threatening us, her officer said, trying to breathe. He's mourning. The officer looked at her, eyes wide with a strange fear. Commander, he's not just alive, he's remembering us. And I think ... the galaxy forgot him first. In that moment, across distant stars, other ships started moving. Not just fleets. Pilgrims. Seekers. Survivors. All drawn by the one thing. Rarer than war in this part of the galaxy. A human who returned from the dead carrying the past, and maybe the future. Whispers of the forgotten deep inside the heart of the galactic core. News of the Dawnwalker's return spread like wildfire. The old races stirred. Some feared it. Some hungered for it. Others remembered. On the crimson moon of Ural, an old sage sat in silence. His name was Krensel, a keeper of ancient knowledge, once a friend to Earth. He had been young when the Dawnwalker disappeared. Now his back was bent and his eyes cloudy, but his memory was sharp. When his young apprentice rushed in, gasping, "The Dawnwalker has returned. Krensel did not blink. He only whispered. Then the prophecy begins. Far away, in a hidden system filled with dying suns, a darker force watched. A council of the Valankar masters of mind and silence. They had destroyed many Earth ships in the past. They believed humanity was too wild, too free, too dangerous. But this was something they had not planned for. The humans survived the void, one Valankar hissed. Impossible, said another. No species survives that place. He did, and now he walks with something else. Should we destroy him? We tried once. We failed. Then we erased the memory. But it was too late. The memory had already returned. On board the Dawnwalker, Elias stood at the observation deck. Before him stretched a starfield wrapped in quiet beauty. Galaxies spun slowly in the far distance, as if watching him. He could feel them eyes across the stars, staring, wondering, fearing. They think we're a threat, he said aloud. You are, the ship replied. You've become something they can't explain. I didn't ask for this, he whispered. Neither did the universe, the voice said gently. He turned and walked into the heart of the ship, the memory core. Once a data vault, now a living archive. Glowing strands floated around him like nerves connected to every event the ship had witnessed. Here, voices from the past still lived. And they spoke to him. Why did we die, Elias? You should have saved us. You left us behind. He knelt, his hands trembling. I didn't want to forget, he said. But I couldn't carry all of you. Not then. The voices faded. Not gone, just quieter. He stood again. Stronger. Outside, the Ilarian fleet had grown. Other ships had arrived. Dozens. A full circle around the Dawnwalker now. But none dared fire. None dared move closer. Commander Seelai watched the growing tension. He's surrounded, her second said. But he doesn't flinch. Seelai stared at the ship on her main screen. He's waiting. For what? For someone to understand him. A sudden ping. A small diplomatic shuttle, marked with old Earth colors, approached from the other side. Slow, peaceful. That's not ours, Seelai said. On board the shuttle was a woman. Half Cenari, half human. A rare child of peace. Her name was Mara, and she carried a voice recorder from another time. Her grandmother had served on the Dawnwalker. She had believed, until her last breath, that Elias Kaine was not dead. And now, her voice echoed from the device in Mara's hand. Elias, if you're out there, remember who you are, not what they made you. As her shuttle floated close, the Dawnwalker stirred. For the first time in decades, the docking bay opened. Mara stepped out alone into the belly of the dead ship that had returned. Her steps echoed like drums of history. Warm lights followed. The air was strange soft but heavy with presence. She turned a corner, and there he stood. Elias Kaine. Taller than the stories. Face calm, eyes glowing gently. Not cruel. Not proud. Just. You carry her voice, he said quietly. Mara nodded. She never stopped believing, Elias whispered, even when the universe did. They stood in silence, two humans surrounded by metal and memory. Then Mara asked the question the galaxy feared to ask. What did you bring back with you? Elias looked past her, into the shadows, where a soft light pulsed like a heartbeat. I brought back what we lost, he said. And behind him, something shifted. Not a weapon. Not a beast. But a presence. Ancient. Curious. Alive. The presence in the light. Mara felt it before she saw it, an energy like warm wind brushing against her skin, but it came from inside the ship. The air trembled softly, as if the metal itself breathed. The glow behind Elias pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. Not mechanical, but alive in a way her mind could not fully explain. Elias stood calmly in front of her, but his voice had changed. It held weight now, like every word came from a place far beyond the stars. "We found something in the dark," he said softly. "Or maybe it found us." Mara's voice shook. "What is it?" Elias turned, walking toward the light. "It's not a god," he said, "but it is old, older than the galaxies, older than names." Mara followed him, her breath tight in her chest. The deeper they went, the more the ship changed. Walls once cold and broken were smooth now, glowing with symbols she didn't understand. It felt like the ship was growing, healing, remembering itself. Finally, they reached the core. It was a sphere floating above the floor, shimmering with soft white light, wrapped in strands of energy that moved like silk in water. But inside the sphere was no machine. It was something else. A shape, shifting, impossible to define. Part fire, part wind, part thought. And somehow beautiful. "It speaks to you?" Mara whispered. "Not with words," Elias said. "With feeling, memory, pain." He touched the edge of the sphere gently. The light rippled outward. "When we fell into the void, time broke. My crew died, one by one. But something there reached out to me. It didn't speak like we do. It shared. It showed me what it was. It was alone. Just like us." Mara stepped closer, her eyes wide with wonder. "And now it's here, inside the Dawnwalker?" "We didn't build it," Elias said. "We became part of it. It doesn't control me. It listens." Mara turned to him. "Why did it let you live?" Elias looked down. "Because I remembered." Outside the ship, things were not quiet. A fleet of Valinkar warships dropped from hyperspace like black blades. Their ships were sharp, cold, and silent, moving without sound. They didn't send warnings. They didn't ask questions. They had come to erase. Commander Silai saw them arrive. Venlinkar warforms detected. 12 ships, all charging main weapons. She stood quickly. "We have to warn him. He knows," her officer said. "His ship just activated all systems." Back inside the Dawnwalker, Elias stood before the sphere. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "They're here." The presence responded. Not with words, but with a soft note like the beginning of a song. The ship shook gently, not with fear, but with power waking up. Mara stepped back as lights flickered around her. The Dawnwalker, once rusted and broken, began to change. Metal shifted. Walls realigned. The ship was healing itself. Outside, the Valankar opened fire. Blinding blue beams shot toward the Dawnwalker, but the beams bent like light around a star. They missed. No. They were pushed. Silai stared at the screens. "What just happened?" Her science officer whispered. "Space itself changed. Like the laws around that ship aren't the same anymore." "They brought something back," Silai whispered. "And it's protecting him." Inside, Elias walked toward the bridge, Mara close behind. The presence flowed beside them like wind, unseen but felt. "Will you fight them?" Mara asked. Elias stopped. "No, but they'll kill you." He looked at her, calm and steady. "They already did. What's left of me is memory." The Valankar fired again. This time, the Dawnwalker answered. A pulse spread out from its core. Soft, white, and silent. Ships across the area powered down instantly. Not destroyed, not damaged. Just silenced. Venlenkaar engines failed. Weapons shut off. And then came the voices. Dozens of them. Echoes from the past. Human voices. Old, young, male, female, all speaking at once. "We remember. We forgive. We rise." The Valankar commanders screamed in rage. But their ships drifted, powerless. And in that silence, the galaxy saw something it had never seen before. A human ship, holding the power of peace. Not to conquer, but to protect. And the one who stood at its heart, once a lost captain, now a living bridge between life and something far beyond it. Elias Kaine. The man who came back with a new god. Voices that never did the Vinkar fleet floated in dead silence, their warships paralyzed not by damage, but by something deeper. The Dawnwalker's pulse hadn't destroyed, it had remembered. And that memory struck harder than any weapon. The Valenkar flagship, Commander Threk, stood frozen, staring at darkened control panels. His mind, trained for war, couldn't understand what had happened. He had prepared for battle, but not for sorrow, not for forgiveness, not for the echo of voices that sounded like prayers carried across time. What is this? Weapon? He snarled, but his crew didn't answer. Many of them sat quietly, eyes wide, breathing slowly, hearing something he could not, something only those who once knew pain could understand. Meanwhile, back inside the Dawnwalker, Mara stood beside Elias as the glowing presence floated near them, calm and silent. They heard the voices, Mara whispered. Was that the crew? Your crew? Elias nodded slowly. Yes. Not just them, all of them. Everyone who ever gave something to keep humanity moving forward. Their memories live in this ship now. In this being. Mara looked down at her trembling hands. I felt them. Some spoke to me. They were kind. They are not ghosts, Elias said. They're the soul of what we once were. A pause passed between them. Then Elias said something she didn't expect. The galaxy believes humanity is dangerous. Too wild. Too broken. Too proud. He looked at her with deep sadness. Maybe we were. But what they forget, he continued, walking through the glowing corridor, is that humanity learns. We fall, but we learn. We bleed, but we get back up. The Dawnwalker's lights flickered around him like stars shifting in respect. And sometimes, he said, the worst. Pain doesn't create monsters. It creates protectors. As he spoke, hundreds of messages poured in from nearby systems. From distant colonies, survivors, old allies of Earth, and even former enemies. Many had watched the Valenkar fleet approach, sure that a massacre would follow, but what they saw instead was a man standing between peace and destruction, not by force, but by memory. What do we do now? Mara asked, her voice small. We show them what it means to remember, Elias replied. We show them the power of holding on. Outside the ship, Saloa's vessel received a new transmission. It was from the Valenkar fleet. Commander Threx was on screen, eyes shadowed, voice trembling. We retreat. Salai blinked. You're surrendering? No, Threx said bitterly. We are stepping back. Then he looked away, because we saw something we cannot explain. And explanation is the weapon of the strong. The Valenkar. Ships turned slowly, engines powering again. They left without another word, not beaten, but humbled. Salai turned to her crew. They didn't leave because we were stronger. They left because they saw something human, and they didn't know what to do with it. The communications board lit up again, this time from the Naxuri Union, a species once at war with Earth, and another from the Talari Queens, who had lost entire moons in the first contact years. Each message carried the same words. We would like to speak. Inside the Dawnwalker, Mara watched Elias sit at the old command chair. Are you ready for this? She asked. He looked ahead into the stars. I wasn't ready to die, he said quietly. But I'm ready to live now, not just for myself, but for all the ones who didn't come back. The presence pulsed gently behind him, not as a god. But as something deeper. A memory. That love. And the man who carried it, who stood between pain and healing, had finally found his voice again. The man who became a bridge at Galaxy was listening now. The story of the Dawnwalker had spread to every corner of known space. Across dusty trade hubs, silent temples, broken space stations, and forgotten colonies, beings from every species stopped to hear the same thing. A human ship, thought lost in the void, had returned, but more than that. It had come back with memory, with sorrow, and with a man who had carried both through the dark and somehow turned it into light. On the Dawnwalker, Elias stood in the heart of the bridge, surrounded by soft glowing panels and whispering lights. Systems that once ran on fuel now pulsed with living energy. Not wires, not circuits, but something different. Something that understood pain. Something that remembered names. One by one, messages began to arrive. Holograms filled the space above. The central console ambassadors, leaders, survivors. A child from the Valexi station, crying as she held a picture of her lost parents. A captain from the Telluri moons, once an enemy of Earth, now bowing her head in silence. A priest from the Ashari faith saying, "You carry the soul flame." And even Salai, strong and proud, said only this, "Thank you for coming back." Mara stood beside Elias, her hands trembling. "They want you to lead something, something bigger than Earth. They want you to speak for all who were lost." Elias shook his head slowly. "I'm not a leader." "Then what are you?" He looked out the window. Thousands of ships filled the space around the Dawnwalker, not in attack, not in fear. They had come to witness. "I'm a reminder," he said. A soft hum echoed through the ship. The presence responded not with words, but with a feeling, a warmth, like sitting beside a fire after a long storm. And for the first time since returning, Elias smiled not with sorrow, but peace. "The presence inside the ship," Mara asked. "It's still growing, isn't it?" Elias nodded. "It's learning, not just about us, but from us. It watched us break. It saw what pain could do, and now it understands something new." "What?" "Healing." As they spoke, something unexpected happened. One of the Valinkar ships returned not to fight, but to send a gift. A small cube-shaped memory crystal. Old, cracked. Inside was the face of a young Valinkar soldier barely grown. "This was my brother," the message said. "He died fighting your people, but he believed. We had something to learn from humans. I didn't understand him then. Now I do. Please remember him." Elias took the crystal, placed it in the core, and the ship sang, not with noise but with light, gentle pulses through the hull, through the stars. Colors that couldn't be named. Feelings that wrapped around every ship, watching like a warm wind. Every soul listening felt something inside. Not fear, not weakness. But connection. And through that connection, something beautiful began. A movement. A gathering of those who were tired of fighting, those who had lost too much, those who wanted to build something better. And at the center of it was the ship that came back from death. Not to rule, not to conquer, but to remember. Elias sat again in the command chair, his eyes closed, the presence beside him. Mara whispered, "They're calling it the New Dawn Pact. They want you to lead it." He didn't answer, but his voice filled the ship. "I don't want a throne. I don't want power. I want peace. And I'll carry every name, every loss, every memory, until the stars forget what war felt like." The presence pulsed once, and a new light spread across the fleet. The Dawnwalker had become more than a ship. It had become a bridge between pain and healing. Between memory and hope. Between species and something far greater. The light we leave behind. Time moved differently now. Weeks passed since the Dawnwalker's return, but to those watching, it felt like history had split open. Across hundreds of worlds, something had changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't forced. It was quiet. Gentle. A deep breath after centuries of holding in pain. In that breath, The galaxy had found space for something it had almost forgotten. Hope. On a gathering station above the orbit of Nader 6, leaders from over 60 species stood together, not in argument, not in fear, but in something far more rare, shared silence. At the center of the station was a tall glass chamber, and in it stood Elias Kaine. Not on a platform, not above anyone. Just standing. As a man, beside him, Mara placed her grandmother's recorder down on a smooth stone. The message played one last time, soft and cracked, like a lullaby carried on starlight. Elias, if you're out there, remember who you are, not what they made you. The room fell still. Elias stepped forward. I am not the strongest. I am not the smartest. I am not perfect. He looked up at the circle of faces around him, some human, some not, some made of crystal, some of air, all watching. But I remember what it was like to fall and to be forgotten. And to come back. He took a deep breath. This ship, the presence that lives in it, did not come here to lead. It came to listen. It came to understand. And through me, it saw what humanity was at its worst and at its best. He paused. Then pointed to the sky outside. Look around. Do you see what we've built? Not in ships, not in walls, but in understanding. Soft murmurs rose. We lost millions. Whole worlds. Whole dreams. But memory doesn't have to be a weight. It can be a bridge. A child stepped forward from the Telari side. She held a small glowing orb, a symbol of mourning. Can I place it on the ship? She asked. Elias nodded, tears in his eyes. She walked up to the Dawnwalker, now docked in peace above the station. The ship's outer hull, once cold and rusted, now shimmered with soft lights and etched names. Not of heroes, not of rulers. Just names. Remembered names. The girl placed the orb gently beside a name. The ship pulsed. One light joined the others. Inside the Dawnwalker, the presence moved. It no longer felt like a foreign force. It felt familiar. And in its soft hum, many began to hear whispers of those they thought were lost forever. Voices of mothers, of sons. Of lovers. Of friends. Not haunting. Not calling. Just remembering. Mara stood with Elias on the bridge that night, gazing at the stars. She sighed. This ship was meant to explore, not to become a legend. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe legends are just memories with purpose. She looked at him. And what's your purpose now? He didn't speak for a moment, then turned to her, eyes gentle, to light a path for whoever comes next. The Dawnwalker began to move slowly, rising from its resting place. Below, thousands watched it ascend. It didn't vanish in speed. It drifted, like a lantern carried by wind, slow and steady until the stars wrapped around it again. Elias Kaine did not stay to rule. He stayed long enough to show them something else. That pain could be more than scars. That silence could speak louder than war. And that one man, carrying memory, walking with light, could change the course of everything. In time, stories would change. Names would fade. Empires would rise and fall. But among the stars, drifting somewhere between suns and songs, a single ship would be seen now, and then carrying the voices of the past and the light we leave behind.